Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Hope you're well. You know that news conference the other day where Nigel Farage rolled out Ila Cunningham as the Reform candidate for Mayor of London? Well, it was all part of quite a large press conference. And one of the things where I was looking over it, he had some very pointed remarks to make about, London, about Starmer. He basically went nuclear on the whole affair, because it's very apparent that we're being gaslit and lied to on a regular basis by all of them. Unfortunately, I do include Nigel Farage and Reform in this, but it's always good to listen to somebody on the outside trying to get elected in, so to speak, as in, the next election down the line, because sometimes they come up with a good summary of exactly what's going on. Now, have a look at this video and we'll see what he has to say and make some remark on it ourselves.
People on the streets, they don't feel safe. Anyone who says otherwise hasn't walked the streets or doesn't live in it.
Yeah, I mean, if Sadiq Khan thinks that London today is the greatest city in the world, he is deluded. And he wants to get out more and meet people. And it's very interesting. One of the reasons, I mean, the exodus of people that's gone, and not the wealthy, but the 30-something entrepreneurs and aspirationists. When you ask people in Dubai, in Milano, places like that, when you ask them, would you come back to the UK? Well, it's not just about tax. It's actually about, I will only come back if this is a safe city for me and my family to live in.
Now, that is the key point right there, isn't it? All of us everywhere will only come back or will only live in a place in the first place if it is going to be safe, if it is going to be okay for you and your family. Otherwise, if you're going to risk your own existence by living in a place, why would you go there? It just doesn't. And then, you look at the previous video where I covered this. These people genuinely are deluded. Whether Ila Cunningham or anybody else, for that matter, has the louse to do anything about it, time will tell if they get elected. And as for tax, well, you look at what's happening with Rachel for accounts. Let's have a look at some more.
And I honestly believe that Khan, the Labour government, the Conservative opposition, they've lost sight of this. They've genuinely lost sight of just how negative the perception is of London. And whether it's people going abroad or people moving out to other parts of the home counties and accepting a long, expensive commute to work, this issue is right at the very heart of it.
There you go. They're losing sight of people's perception of London. It's quite a negative perception, because a lot of politicians in London and a lot of people of that ilk within London can't see past a square mile and have no idea or no perception of what's going on the other side of the M25 and what people do think and feel about it. It's, again, very isolationist. There's London and nothing else.
On the other issues, boots on the ground with kit. What boots? What kit? I mean, we might be able to go for 6 or 8 weeks. If you're talking about a modern day reincarnation of the British Army of the Rhine, forget it.
What boots? What kit? Pretty humiliating, isn't it? And you watch all of the promises that Starmer has made to other nations, namely Ukraine, actually, about what we're going to do, boots on the ground. If you look at the numbers of our armed forces now compared with time immemorial, we've been absolutely decimated. The only way you would be able to honour what you're promising is to draft people in. I can't see any other way of doing it. But there's this overriding thing, isn't there, with this whole European cooperation between everybody. So could you imagine decimating our army to such a degree that we would have to rely on others? Is that the way it's going? Who knows? Let's see what Nigel's saying again.
We are in no position to do it. And despite all the promises that have been made on defence spending, absolutely none of them have happened so far, and there's no particular indication that they will. We are not in a place to do it. I would also add, I thought the press conference in Paris yesterday was interesting. There were two press conferences going on. One was the Americans saying we're trying like crazy to get a peace deal. The president's determined to do it. We are, one is envoy, the other is son-in-law. At the same time that the European leaders, or those that actually showed up, were talking about what would happen after peace. It was like two simultaneous press conferences going on. It showed the sheer impotence, frankly, of the European Union itself. Only the British and French agreed to do anything. The German Chancellor said he might chuck a few troops in Poland, but none in Ukraine itself. Giorgia Meloni was missing. So I thought that was very interesting. I also thought it was quite noteworthy to see the Prime Minister in action, speaking out to the press, to the cameras, incapable of speaking for as long as 2 seconds without looking at his notes. And I increasingly feel with this Prime Minister, he's just given notes. He goes out, he reads them. I'm not even sure he knows what he's saying anymore. We told that at the special cabinet meeting yesterday, he was there to inspire the troops, to get them kicked off for 2026. And he did it by reading out pre-prepared statements. And I think,
this is the problem with all of them. And he's pointed this out. What you have to realize is that none of them are in control. Whenever they go into cabinet meetings, everything's pre-prepared. When he went over to Paris or wherever he goes, any statement, anything he makes is pre-prepared. Has to go by it. I'm not working off a script right now. I'm just telling you general conversation, how I feel. It's a very easy skill you pick up over the course of time. So why can't he? Does that mean there's somebody else pulling the strings? Or is it just blatant incompetence right across the board? Who knows? But it's very damning, isn't it? What boots? What kit? Maybe go for a couple of weeks. Yes, Nigel, you might have a point. Well, the other thing to consider as well is when they talk about the troops, putting troops on the ground in the event of peace. Has anybody heard what the other side has said about putting troops on the ground and what effect that would have on the peace? They're all crazy, all of them.
No, this is a man politically who is drowning. Greenland. Okay. I agree with the Prime Minister. This should be for the people of Greenland and Denmark to decide. Of course I do. Of course, Prime Minister, I believe in national self-determination. And the sooner you apply it to the badly treated Chagosian community, the better things will be.
Very important remark there. Self-determination. At the end of the day, any nation has a right to self-determination. But what you were seeing played out on here is really the narrative. You need to look at the real reasons things are going on. You need to look at other sources of information. And again, I point back to X, another one of Starmer's humiliations. Is this a reason that, they want to get rid of it so they can control the narrative? Self-determination is a very important right, and the English cherish it.
What I will say is this. There are some genuine security concerns around Greenland. And that becomes ever more relevant with a retraction of the ice caps as we head towards the North Pole. That there is a strong feeling in British intelligence circles and many in NATO that there needs to be a significant NATO base located directly on the north of Greenland. At the moment, it would appear that is something Greenland is not particularly keen to do. As you know, since 2009, Greenland has been moving further and further away from Danish control and is pretty close to establishing its own level of independence. And the fear is that they will fall prey to very large amounts of Chinese money and Chinese influence. So, as ever, with things that Trump says, they may sound outrageous, and in the case of potentially using force, they are, but there is point behind it. So
there is point behind it. Now, what you've got to realise is that there's a big lump of land that's close enough to America that they take notice of it. And when you have Chinese and Russian ships fairly close by, makes old Donald a bit twitchy. That's why, things are happening. And if you look at a map, if you look at a global map, you've got them on that side, us on this side. You imagine a line down the middle. I mean, you look at the United States of America before World War II, they were more isolationists than they are now, I would say. Very much so. Are we going that way again? It's going to be very interesting how that one plays out.
there are genuine security concerns around Greenland, but no, of course, they are the people that must decide. Thank you. Moving on to Mari Aurora from Sky News.
Thank you, Mari Aurora from Sky News. I'll begin with you, Layla, on London. How exactly do you plan to achieve this reduction in crime? Could you give us a bit more detail? You talked about stop and search, for instance. Is that something that you'd like to expand more in London, for instance? And for yourself, Mr. Farage, if Trump were to invade Greenland, let's just hypothetically ask that question, would you stand up to Donald Trump? Or would you see that as the end of NATO? And have you spoken to Donald Trump in the past few days on their actions in Venezuela?
No, I haven't spoken to Donald Trump. He's been rather busy, actually. Ever since 2016, the narrative has been that Trump wants to destroy NATO. But actually, whenever I talk to Trump since 2016 about NATO, he's always said, no, that's not right. I want to strengthen NATO. And ask yourself a question. Has Trump strengthened or weakened NATO? Well, you know, even the Secretary General, Stoltenberg, as he was of NATO, said that Donald Trump had led, his words had led to a significant increase in defense spending from most NATO members. So in many ways, he has strengthened NATO. However, if he was to do this using military force, that probably would be the end of NATO, which is why he won't do it, in my opinion. And would I stand up to him? Now, the great thing with being friends with people is friends don't always agree with everything that the other one says. Friends have the right to disagree with each other as well, and of course I would. Lila, do you want to take the line? Do you want to come to the microphone?
Yeah, sure.
Because
there you go. Just finishing, you know, what we have is a situation at the moment where you've got all this trouble with Greenland, and it's a right of self-determination, or do the Americans say, no, we're not happy with what's going on around there, let's rein this in a little bit. Denmark, which happens to be a NATO country, don't like this very much. They have allies, other NATO countries, which don't like this very much. And Starmer, remember the comment by Nigel earlier on, what boots, what kit, We could go for a couple of weeks. Wants to get involved with that hurrah up there as well. The man's a liability. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to the channel. On X, give me a follow. Leave your comments. Share my stuff. I look forward to talking to you soon. Toodaloo.